Madam Supervisor, you said just before we started this that you were drowning under the boat law. I take it that the response and reaction to the announcement of what the town is interested in doing has been pretty dynamic.
It has been, and mixed reviews. Obviously, you have many boaters who have been taking advantage of the waterfront off of the Seabreeze area, and they're not happy with this proposed amendment. And then I have boaters who have been contacting me that are upset with these boaters because they feel they are giving boaters a bad reputation because they feel the property rights should be respected. And then I have other property owners along the lake in Irondequoit who are concerned that this amendment will cause more of the boaters to go down and raft in front of their homes in Rock Beach, White City, and Somerville. So, yes, I feel like I'm drowning in this boating legislation.
Well, let's back up a step and talk for a minute about where it comes from, what the problem was. I have seen those boaters rafting all their boats together down there off of the Seabreeze area. I could see that there's quite a community of people who just sort of tie up there all day.
And residents who live in that area said they can be there 10 and 12 hours a day. And one resident had counted one time there were 150 boats rafted together that they themselves could not take their own boats out onto the water. They didn't have access. Literally boaters getting off their boats because they do not have a head and trespassing on property, going to Hot Dog Road to use the facilities there, or walking their dogs on private property.
And that's sand, although it looks like it's almost a continuation of the park. It's not. It's owned by the homeowners there.
That's exactly right. The beach is owned by the homeowners, which is the situation all along the lake where homes exist. Those people do own the beaches in front of their homes. And their deeds say something about watermarks, whether it's the high water mark or the low water mark.
So you're talking about establishing this 450-foot limit. Basically, you have to stay offshore unless you live there to the distance that the pier sticks out into the lake. What about the legalities of it? We looked up New York state law, and it seems pretty vague about this sort of thing.
Well, I don't know that it is that vague. I think it's New York state navigation law tries to address all the various bodies of water. For example, New York State Navigation Law, subsection 45 AAA, has special provisions relating to speed on Irondequoit Bay. Subsection 45 also talks about reckless operation of a vessel and the speed on New York State waters. I think it's section 44 that talks about noise levels on pleasure vessels. That is one of the issues that these residents have been addressing, is the lewdness, the loud music emitted from the boats. I think it's section 46A that regulates vessels along the waterfront, and I believe it is that one that talks specifically about the various towns. And I think it's that one that also says Irondequoit, Webster, and Penfield are allowed to legislate what occurs in the water off their boundaries.
So are you satisfied that you have the legal authority, that this is no more than a bit of an evolution from what you've already done, that you can go ahead and do this?
According to what New York State navigation law and, what we're being told, remember this was written by our attorneys in conjunction with the Monroe County Sheriff Department and our own Irondequoit Police Department in trying to meet the needs of these residents. navigation law does say 300 feet from shore. Why the 450 feet was determined that was the distance at the end of the pier, and that would be a good line of sight marker for boaters and the law enforcement agencies to determine was if you were to draw a line from that. The issue that is coming up now is that the other residents who live in the other areas that have their own private beaches are now going to be affected. So, this is something we have to think about, that it's not just the Seabreeze residents, it's all those residents along Lake Ontario.
So you might have to think a little bit wider than just that specific quarter or half a mile along Lake Bluff Road there.
And that has been on my mind right along. I've had to deal with issues of people trespassing on the beaches of those who live in the Somerville area. And it's only been recently now that residents who live in the other areas along Lake Ontario have started to bring it to our attention about the trespassing of boaters. So here for almost 2 years we've been working with the residents in the Seabreeze area, and now I think we have to look at the whole Lake Ontario lakefront area. So, but I think it's the Seabreeze residents that feel, since when the city opened up Durand Beach to swimming, that's when those boaters all started to move farther east to the Seabreeze area. I think it's also an indication that we really could use a transient marina over on Irondequoit Bay, just south of where the county boat launch is, that we really could use that so that boaters could come in for the day, take advantage of all the different assets that are in the Seabreeze area. That is something, the town of Irondequoit has been trying to achieve for quite a few years, but it's being held up by one of the state agencies. But I think that would start to address many of the issues that are faced by the property owners, that if we had that transient marina. I hear from residents who live in Webster and Penfield. They'd love to come by boat to Seabreeze, but there's no place to dock.
Well, perhaps this issue will move that cause along.
That's what we're hoping that it would, so that, I understand, everybody wanting public access to the waterways. And, I understand, what the boaters are saying. I, too, am a boater. I'm a power boater as well as a sailor. But I think you also have to respect the rights of the property owners. And, I do worry about negligent behavior that affects everyone.